We'd like to take a few minutes of silence and prayer for the victims of violence in Dallas. Remember to support our first responders, especially our police officers that protect our families and neighborhoods here in Montgomery. After the moments of silence, our Police Chief Dan Myers will lead us in the pledge. Everybody stand, please.
Please, I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Take the roll, please.
Can I get a motion?
Yes,
for
get right.
President?
Get a motion.
I move to appoint Trustee Lee as President Pro Tem.
Second.
Roll.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Hines? Trustee Youngerman?
Yay.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Okay, right now we usually take a 2-minute opportunity for anybody that's not on the agenda for public comments. We may not answer your question at the time, but you'd be glad to come up and we would be glad to listen to you. Is there anybody that would like to come up that's not on the agenda and talk? Okay, hearing none. We'll move to the consent agenda. Minutes of the village board meeting of June 27th, the building report for June 16th, 2/16. Accounts payable through July 7th, 2016, in the amount of $821,122.70, and the cancellation of the July 19th committee of the whole meeting. Motion?
Second.
Take the roll.
Trustee Hines? Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yay.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
All right, next are items for separate action. Recommendation of Planning Commission 2016-017Z regarding off-street parking, text amendment to Section 13 of the zoning ordinance. And it looks like the next 4 are all yours, Rich.
Okay, thank you. At the Plan Commission meeting last week, the commission took up 2 items, the first of which was a recommendation to modify our off-street parking requirements within the manufacturing districts. This is as a result of looking at some large-scale buildings that will be going in, well, one in particular soon, that does not require, because of their use, all of the parking that would normally be required for a building of that size if it was to be more of a heavy manufacturing type operation. So what we find ourselves in often is looking at an industrial building that the majority of which could be either manufacturing or it could be warehouse. And you can imagine that with a warehouse operation, the number of employees is greatly reduced from what a manufacturing or production type operation would require. Usually there's a small office component, and then again, the building might be warehouse or it could be production. So with that in mind, we felt that it was appropriate to look at a concept in zoning called land banking of parking spaces. And what that basically means is we'll look at their use and their number of employees for the warehouse in particular, and say you need 10 spaces because there's 10 employees, maybe some visitor parking and handicap spaces, and of course loading and unloading zones. But with a square footage that totals over 100,000 square feet, you might be required many more by code to meet an industrial zoning district for manufacturing. My point is that rather than construct parking that isn't going to be used at this time, set it aside for green space. It'll be completely designed so that the parking could be accomplished in the future if the use changed in the future, and there'd be a covenant that would have to be recorded against the property with the county recorder's office. And the village could then demand parking as the use changed or the use was modified by the property owner. So with that in mind, the commission made a recommendation to the village board to approve amendments to section 13 that would allow for land banking and parking design that could accomplish parking in the future.
Okay. There's first reading, correct?
Well, we would, they can vote on the recommendation, and then item B, the ordinance would
Okay.
just be first reading.
All right, we'll vote on the recommendation of the planning commission. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Victor Roll? You got that?
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Heinz. Trustee Lee.
Yes.
The second item for consideration tonight is acceptance of a recommendation by the Plan Commission to make some modifications to the sign code. The Plan Commission and village staff and the village attorney for several months last year were looking at modifications to the sign code. You might recall that there were a few cases that came through for some modifications to monument signs and message board signs. But in the process of looking at further amendments and codification of our sign code section of the zoning ordinance, there was a Supreme Court ruling that took place earlier this year that Laura is very well versed on. And when we took a look at that case and how it affects municipalities and our ability to regulate signs, it's drastically changed in terms of what this court case has provided in terms of municipal authority. So with that in mind, we took a look at the amendments that we had previously been working on with the commission, took those, made some minor adjustments to those, and then looked at specifically the first four sections of the sign code, which are pretty generic, but they cover the purpose of the sign code itself, the interpretation, the general regulations, and the maintenance of signage. So Laura has helped us rework the text within those four sections. And then further, we looked at the variance section, which we felt was redundant. It had already been covered within the administrative section of Section 12 of the zoning ordinance. And further, we felt that the code could be better utilized by the general public and businesses and sign companies if there was a easily read table, which is included in your packet, of all the types of signage. If you look across that table on the top, it talks about all the different types of signage, and then on the left-hand column, it identifies the zoning districts within the village. We have a number of, obviously, zoning districts and 7 different types of signs. So it's kind of a graph where you look at it and you can easily determine whether a sign is permitted or not permitted. And it further goes on to describe in both graphic form and a narrative form the different types of signs that have been identified. So we hope that it's a clearer way for businesses and the general business community to look at what might be allowed and what would not be allowed in terms of our sign code. Much of the language has been changed to be in compliance with what we believe the interpretation of the Supreme Court has been. And one particular area that we've been talking about, Trustee Bond and I have been talking today about this section of lumens and nits, which is part of a message board nomenclature that goes with the illumination, frankly, of the message board itself. We seem to be, in our existing code, we seem to have kind of the high range of that illumination, if you will. I've read on some websites through the American Planning Association and trying to get additional information about what the minimum standards or maximum standards should be. We seem to be at the high end of that, so we're doing additional research on that. We're not asking you to vote on that tonight, but prior to the next meeting, I hope to get a better answer from the sign industry and also from the American Planning Association on what would be appropriate. So I want you to know that we're looking into those specific elements of the code. There'll be other portions of this that we'll bring forward in the future to help codify it, but we feel that we need to take these steps to be in compliance with the Supreme Court ruling. So with that, we're recommending amendments to sections 1201, 1202, 1203, 1204. The new section 1209, the elimination of old section 1210, and then 1211 would be added as well. So this is the first reading. If you have any questions, Lauren and I'd be happy to try to answer them. It's quite lengthy, so if you haven't had a chance to read through it, let us know in the next 2 weeks, and we'll try to answer your questions.
The recommendation of the Planning Commission was affirmative, so.
Yes, sir.
On 018.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, need a motion? Second?
Motion to accept Planning Commission's recommendation?
Second.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Heinz? Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the purchase of 2016 GMC pickup truck for the replacement of Unit 271. Turn it over to Todd.
Sorry. Try that again. Thank you. Included in your agenda packet is a request for approval on the final scheduled vehicle in our overall vehicle replacement plan. I've come before you quite a few times recently requesting various vehicles for both Public Works and Police, but this is the final in our plan. We've had some difficulty finding this vehicle simply because the 2015 model year is no longer available for order, and the 2016 model year of this particular vehicle has not been released. Pricing hasn't been released, and the order form hasn't been released, and there's no indication as to how quickly that will happen. So we anticipate it could be another couple months before we could order a 2016, and then we would be faced with the delays of ordering a specialized, or not a specialized, but a custom-built truck. To work around those delays, we contacted Kaufman Truck Sales, who sold us most of our small fleet, and asked if there was anything they might be able to help with. And they suggested they were able to search other dealerships in the state of Illinois. They found a 2015 vehicle that was built, just spec build, but it fits all of our needs. So they could transfer that vehicle from another dealership. They will honor municipal pricing for us. That would allow us to work within the 2015 model year pricing, which is anticipated to be a little bit less than the 2016, although we don't have those official numbers yet. The total purchase price for the truck is $32,581. It needs an additional $2,400 in upfitting for toolboxes, key racks, light bar, logo, that type of stuff. The vehicle serves the Julie locator for the most part. We're seeking a quad cab pickup. He's been using a Trailblazer for a number of years, and it's not the most efficient work vehicle for that job function. A lot of times he's had to come back to the shop to get different tools and a different vehicle and return to the same job site just because he didn't have what he needed the first time. So we can improve on our efficiency just by providing the correct vehicle for the job. So my request is for the total price, $32,581 plus the 24.
And I just want to clarify, you seem to be off a year. You were saying 2015?
I may
2016,
be.
it's 16 and 17, right? This is a 16 vehicle?
Yeah, I guess you're correct only because it's, their years are a little askew. I think you follow what I mean.
Yeah, but this is a
It would
2016
be a
vehicle we're buying.
2016, then you're correct.
I have a question. Because this is a GMC crew cab, essentially it's a pickup chassis, correct?
It's got a bed on it, though.
It's got a
Crew
bed on
cab
it.
with a bed.
Can we, if we needed to, could we put a plow on this?
We could, it's a bit undersized for us. We've added to our fleet this year. You may recall we added a vehicle to Public Works that was not a replacement. That, along with all of our other replacements, have come with plows. So we've actually got one additional plow from where we were last season. I'm comfortable with the number of plows. We could put a plow on this, but it probably wouldn't be heavy-duty enough for what we're trying to accomplish as a municipality. So I don't know that I'd recommend it.
Okay, thank you.
Color?
It's white. It meets all of our criteria.
Any other discussion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Take the roll.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Heinz? Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next items for discussion. That's the items for separate actions done. Items for discussion only is sales tax incentive agreement and liquor license request for Binny's Beverage Depot. David, you want to come forward?
Thank you, Trustee Lee. My name is David Howard. I'm here representing Inland National Development Corporation for Ogden Hill. As you know, the office depot space has been at 1150 Ogden Avenue, has been vacant for several years. I believe the last time that they paid their any kind of sales tax was December of 2014. After months and years of trying to get users interested, we do have Binny's Beverage Depot interested in the space. Now, with that being said, you know, they're a very high-quality operator with ancillary economic benefits to the community, and I'd be proud to bring them to the village. What comes with their request, because of their ability to bring in sales tax dollars, is significant burdens on the landlord, and that is why the reasoning for the request is what goes with their conditions of their interest, and I can go into those perhaps more in detail with staff. The other point that I wanted to mention is the good news that they are proceeding with urgency. We have been courting Binny's for a long time, but they've expressed an interest to wrap this up quickly. So I'm here requesting your consideration with expediency for tonight. So with that, I will be happy to answer any other questions at this time. Thank you.
When would they sign the lease, Dave? I mean, you said they're urgent. I mean, are they ready to go like right away or what?
As soon as we can prepare it.
Discussion.
You're going to give the village for the first 4 years, no percentage, nothing?
We're still working that out, Trustee Hines.
You are?
We're going to have conversations, and we will hammer out those details.
Okay, thank you.
It's something we know we have to give incentive to something like this, especially when the place, like you say, has got no sales tax for 2 years. Myself personally, I don't like a 20-year. 15's more, especially since their lease is 15. I just don't want to go beyond that. But I know my boy goes to the one and gets a Sapphire Gin up in St. Charles, and it's high-end beverage, and they do a lot of tastings, and he said there's 2 registers going all the time, and there's a line on all of them, and that's the same way in Naperville, and I'm sure they want this location because people from 59, like White Eagle and Aurora and all that, this would be closer than the Naperville one. They'll get the Oswego, the Montgomery, and the Aurora people. So I think it's a very good location for them. I'm sure they did their homework. They usually do. But I also know the sales tax is you've got no sales tax for 2 years, so you got to give them something just so we can get something out of that. Any other?
I have a question, David. This is strictly for the Binny's location?
Correct.
thank you.
I'd like to say that I'm confident that Inland and staff can work out an agreement that's acceptable to the village board and also to Benny's. So I'd
That's our,
welcome Benny's to the village.
and that's our goal this evening, is to gauge the board's interest in this and to get a consensus to allow staff to work with David and Inland to come to terms on an agreement and to get the go-ahead to start doing the background check for the liquor license that would be
license.
required.
Absolutely, move forward.
Yes.
Yep. Pleased to have the discussion. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
All right. There's no executive session tonight. They didn't put on here new and old business, and I thought maybe we have new, and old, just so I can say the Packers are still playing. Youngerman can still say hooray, Ohio State, but we didn't have that on there. But old business, I would say I'm glad that the railroad got those tracks on Webster done in a very short time, and I compliment them for it, because I've had a lot of people mention that, so. And if nobody has anything else,
I have a question.
okay?
They all smile at me. Wow. Todd.
Just one?
Any update? I had asked you a couple months ago about doing some type of nursery on village property. Do you have any update that you could share with us?
Yes, and I had responded to your request through Jeff and the weekly notes, but I'm happy to respond here as well. So we did evaluate it and gave it some good thought. There were a number of components, and some would have favored it a little more. For instance, Commonwealth Edison at one point was offering as many as 100 free trees in sapling form, and if we would have been able to prevail in that bid, if you will, that might have been a driver for it. However, looking at it closer, even if we had to buy smaller sapling trees, which are far less costly, they need to be planted and they need to be nurtured in order to properly establish to a point where we could transplant them. There's a lot that would go into that, and it's our recommendation that we just don't have the staff manpower, if you will, to see that through successfully. There have been a few other agencies, I believe it was the Village of Sandwich in Kendall County, who have tried this, and unfortunately their nurseries grew, but they overgrew to a point where then they couldn't be harvested and replanted, so they were faced with tree removals that they had not anticipated. So given what we've found and the amount of time that we believe it would take to nurture them, continue to prune them, straighten them, water them, we just didn't think it was a worthwhile endeavor. I do like the idea and the concept, but I think in the long run, we're probably paying less buying them directly from the nursery. You also have to anticipate that there's a percentage that will not survive, which could vary depending on drought and or severity of winter, any sort of disease. We're not paying for any of the, well, not directly anyhow, paying for any of the unsuccessful trees grown at a nursery. They may be rolled into the successful tree price, but we're not suffering from their losses. We would be if we did it ourselves. So that's the thought that we employed.
Okay, thank you.
Pete?
Yeah, I don't know who this is for, I think you, Todd. That PMI was doing the cable work on Briarcliff?
They are doing some work for Commonwealth Edison in town.
Are they gonna fix all the dirt piles and everything and lay that off? Put
By
sod back in there?
By permit, they are required to do all the restoration. I don't believe they'll do sod. They don't typically do sod, and that's not required by their permit. They're not working for us. We have a little bit of leverage because they're working in the right-of-way, but they're working for Commonwealth Edison.
Okay, are they gonna come back soon and fix all those places up?
I think there's 30 or 45 days allowed. To be quite honest, if they came back and planted seed now, it wouldn't likely take. So it's probably a better result if the residents can just remain a little patient and wait till a little closer to fall for them. I mean, I'm sure that's kind of the thought process they're using as well. Because if they do it now, it's not going to take, you're not going to grow grass successfully without a lot of water.
I'm saying, is they still got the big piles of dirt there.
They need to do it, and they probably do it all with one crew. It's tolerated in the permit, I think, up to 45 days. I can follow up with them and check into it, but
Thank you very much.
yes.
Same idea. I think the alleys look very good. Some, like I say, we've talked to people, and I don't know anybody where they worked on those alleys in 50 years, and they really look nice now. I'll compliment you on that.
I appreciate that feedback. I think it was a success all the way through. We've had a heavy rain last week. I wasn't here to see, but the engineers saw the work of the alley, if you will, during that heavy rain or right afterwards, and it really absorbed everything. President Broly and I have talked about doing kind of a demo, which I think we will still do, where we kind of man-make and flood one of the alleys just to see how much it will absorb, how quickly, just to show the benefit of that work. But I agree, I think it's turned out quite well.
And I think Chris from EEI said they're going to finish the sod around there later. And same question as Pete had. It looks bad now, but they're going to fix it. And it's definitely looking better in 50 years.
Refresh my memory, was this permeable asphalt? Okay.
One more question, if I may. Are you getting any more feedback about the water treatment upgrade for the downtown area?
We have not had any real negative feedback, which is a positive. We continue to monitor it, and we know it's out in the system. We have done a little bit of flushing, but we haven't had any calls for flushing. So it's been pretty smooth so far.
Same here, no complaints.
Have we received any feedback from Mr. Kennedy?
We have not. I anticipate calling him later this week just to check in with him, but no, we have not received any feedback. He's aware of what we're doing, but I have not had any feedback from him.
Okay.
Certain days it tastes a little bit like chlorine, but it goes away.
And-
I'm
and
down there.
that's- Yeah, that may be somewhat connected only because we've been dialing down the chlorine usage as the phosphate has reached into different parts of the system. It's not being consumed quite as quickly, so there's been a need to dial down the feed rate, but for the most part, we're watching it as closely as we can.
Very good. Any other questions? Anybody? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, adjourn.
Second.
Trustee Heinz. Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bud.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Can you